Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of my Ford-a-Hoe project. In this episode I'm going to be installing the upper and lower swing bushings into the main frame of the backhoe. The bushings are right here. I made them out of a single large bushing, like so, that I bought online somewhere. I forget, I think it was ASB bearings or something like that. I purchased it oversized and I brought it to a machinist friend of mine and he cut it down to size for me. The IDs were pretty close but not quite the correct diameter to slide over the upper and lower swing pivots on the backhoe, so I used my cylinder honer and a little bit of oil and honed them out a little bit, and now they slide on just right. Now I'm doing the similar thing in the installation hole of the mount itself. This is the lower mount, but anyway, I'm honing this out too so the bearing will, or bushing, whatever you want to call it, will slide in there nicely. I don't want it to be a slip fit because it's going to slide around in there, but I don't want it to be too tight of a press fit because that'll actually squish the bearing down and make the ID smaller, which will of course make it not fit on the pivot of the backhoe anymore. So I'm trying to aim for a gentle press fit, and even so I'm just a little concerned about the bearing spinning itself around through use, which is what happened to the old bearings that were in here. The grease hole that should have been lined up with the Zerk was in some other location. So what I'm going to do, or what I already did, I drilled a hole here and I tapped it 1/4 for a set screw. Once I install the bearing, I'm going to put my drill bit in there and drill a little dent into the bearing. I'll run a set screw through there and gently lock it down and put some Loctite on it, and that should prevent the bearing from rotating. Okay, it slid in that far by hand. Got some grease to aid the insertion. Of course, when in doubt, lubricate. Then gently persuade it in the hole. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, we bottomed out. Beautiful. Wonderful. I think that's just right. I don't think that scrunched the bearing at all. Or bushing. I keep calling it a bearing. Now I'll put a little spot drill in there and get a set screw. Okay, grease hole is drilled, and I ground a slot in there with my Dremel with a carbide burr on it. I think that little slot will be plenty to get grease up and down the length of the bearing, and as the backhoe swings left and right, it should distribute the grease all around the bushing. Okay, time to put the bushing in the upper pivot. However, I just noticed, luckily, I noticed now, there's a crack in the weld holding this bushing tube onto the rest of the frame. So I'm going to have to grind this out and weld that up real nice, and after I weld up the crack, I'm going to do a pass all the way around just to firm this up again. And so there we are. Got the bushing in, got my set screw in, I ground some more grease grooves. This one, these grooves, I ground a little differently. You see on the first bearing I just did the up and down slot, but on this one I made this X as well, because my thought is that as the backhoe is in here, the weight is going to be pulling these two pivots forward like this. So the front of this bearing is going to have load on it, and the rear of that bearing is going to have load on it. So with the front of this bearing having load on it, there's going to be pretty much no clearance between the pin that goes in here and the bushing. So when you're trying to pump grease in here, it's going to be very hard to get any significant amount of grease in there for lubrication. But with these grooves, it'll allow the grease to come out to the sides and hopefully get a little bit more grease in there. I didn't have to do that with the bottom piece because the hole was on the front, but the load was on the rear, so the gap would be on the front of the bearing where the grease zerk is, and that wouldn't cause any problems. So that's it. That was pretty quick and easy. Went together very nicely. Now the next step, I gotta clean this all up again. I gotta clean up the bottom piece and paint everything, and then this is going to be attached onto the backhoe that's lying in my pile of junk over there. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, everybody.